In order to be admitted into the recording arts program at LMU, you don't need to have a portfolio, and you don't need to have that much experience or any experience in recording music or in audio, though it doesn't hurt to have some experience.
I came to this program with really very little experience in recording or in audio manipulation, but the great thing about this program is that you can come in with very little experience. You may have experience maybe with GarageBand, or maybe you've even gotten on Pro Tools before, but the program really builds you from the ground up and really kind of gives you the tools while you're here to be able to be viable in the industry.
At Loyola Marymount, we don't record ourselves, we concentrate on music production. The focus of the recording program is really to develop relationships with artists, to go out and find people to record. It's easy to record yourself, anyone can record yourself at home, but the program is really geared towards building relationships with artists, finding people who are talented and bringing out the best in them.
In the recording arts program, we're not here to record our own bands. Instead, we go out and find other bands because it's a lot harder to work with other bands, people that you don't know necessarily, and just have different personalities that you have to manage to have one final project.
There's no specific genre of music really that people concentrate at LMU. You'll get wide varieties from jazz groups to gospel trios to your regular 5-piece rock band.
However, there is one thing you cannot do, and that's record yourself, and that is very important because you really need to work with other people, especially in this industry, so recording other bands and recording other people is of utmost importance.
There's a lot of different bands that you can record. You can go on Craigslist and put a posting, and surprisingly a lot of bands respond to that and are more than willing to come and be recorded in the studio, and that was kind of cool because you can pick a lot of different genres. In our class that I'm in now, each member of the class brings in their own band to record, and that's really interesting because everyone has a different genre, so that's really cool to see how all of those bands work together and how the engineers work with them in developing their sound and different instrumentation and setting up for different instruments and different numbers of people in the band. So it's really cool getting a huge variety of all different kinds of music.
The people who do the best in this program are really the ones that find a bunch of different music to work on, and they learn how to engineer each of those types of music independent from maybe a last group they worked with.
So we have state-of-the-art equipment here, and we're running the latest Pro Tools systems. We have an incredible amount of plugins, including Stylus and Contact, Melodyne, a lot of the pieces of software that you're going to encounter after college.
So in this studio, we've got the Pro Tools HD3 system running the latest version of Pro Tools. We've got all the top-of-the-line plugins. You're never going to find a shortage of software plugins at LMU. We also have a decent collection of outboard gear. We've got a couple of vintage units as well as some new reissues. So there are many different ways to get all sorts of sounds in the studio. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for and how you use your ear to craft that. So this is our main tracking console. It's a great mixer. It's really not too complicated, but it's perfect to learn on. You can get the perfect base of everything you need to know about recording right here. You learn signal flow. Basically, once the sound is in the microphone, where does it go? How does it branch out to the board? How do you tweak the compressor right to make sure it sounds good? You'll learn all of these things hands-on in the studio.
So I'm here in one of the recording arts rooms, one of the music editing rooms actually that I work in, and we have a studio that you can track bands and groups in, and then we'll bring in the files here. We'll work in Pro Tools. We have a MIDI keyboard, we can add MIDI overlay, we can compose additional parts for the music that we're working with. We have a control surface for Pro Tools, just really state-of-the-art equipment, and this is an example of one of the many places that you can do your work.
Well, when I first came to Loyola, I was really interested in music and I wanted just to record bands in the studio, but once I got here, I started taking a lot of classes in film, since it is within the School of Film and Television, and that opened up my mind just to a bunch of new stuff. I've worked on a few student films in the past, and those have all been great experiences, all completely different, but they've all taught me a lot.
Well, I had the opportunity to work on a couple student films to do production sound as well as post on, and having seen both sides of the production, I grown to appreciate a lot of the work that goes in for both production and post.
Well, I think production sound is of utmost importance because you obviously need to capture actors' performances on set, and there's going to be a lot of extraneous sounds that are going to need to be cleaned up.
Because we have such strong ties to like the student producers, student directors, it's really helpful for future career opportunities. I've collaborated with a lot of students, and you just never know when whether those students are going to be people you meet later on in the future. When they're producing big feature films.
Well, I think it's very important to collaborate with film students. Right now, I'm working on a few films. I think that one of the most important things down the road, you never know who you might be networking with, whether it could be the next Steven Spielberg.
I had wanted to come to LMU since I was 13 and study recording arts here because I was really interested in music, and when I was 15 I started setting up shows at my local high school, and I was pretty much gearing ready into music. And then when I got here, the initial classes are more focused towards sound in film, and post-production really caught my attention, and I liked it a lot. When you're working on post-production sound for film, you collaborate with film students, and if you're working on something, you typically want to find somebody who's responsible and that is going to give you deadlines and that you can cooperate with really well. But regardless of who you work for, it's always a good experience because you learn how to work with different types of personalities and how to manage making your client happy.
Collaborating at LMU is a really unique process because you do it with filmmaker students. And what you do is you can do the production sound and you can do the post-production sound. And since you're both learning your craft, you really take the opportunity to experiment and grow and really grapple with and understand what you're doing.
Another important thing about post-production sound for films is that when you're working on films with people, those connections that you make when you're networking and working with other people in the film school are going to last a long time, and you don't know who's going where in their careers or in their future, but someone that you made a connection with in college could really make a difference in your future.
At LMU, we have state-of-the-art equipment. We're actually here in a dubbing studio. I'm working on my project for one of the film students that I'm collaborating with. So as you can see, we are Pro Tools based and Mac based, which is an industry standard, which really prepares students for the real world.
What's unique about the Recording Arts program at LMU is it's part of a film school, and that means for music recording you can record scores, you can get an opportunity to be in the studio and have your work go towards student films.
In professional audio, you're definitely not limited to the studio. LMU has a great program in live sound as well as live studio recording, where you will learn how to record everything live to 2-track in the studio, just as you would for an air broadcast or something like that, as well as we put on 4 or 5 shows a semester outside in the quad, where we bring a band, we set up a whole show, and then we record them live on the stage. And that's a great experience for the real world if you're not going to be tied to the studio. With all the recent changes in the music industry, one way that a band can survive is performing live. The opportunities for an audio engineer in live sound are greater than ever, and they're almost necessary if you're going to be in audio. So at LMU, we have a great program in live music production, which covers live music recordings in the studio as well as live production of concerts that we put on 4 times a semester.
In our final year, we've had the chance to go visit different studios in Los Angeles, from post houses in music and as well as film. And it's been really interesting because I remember in high school I would read the linear notes on albums, and some of the studios that we were able to visit were those exact studios, and actually visiting the facilities and listening to the managers explain their business style, it's really interesting.
Part of the program here brings in alumni guest speakers to talk with us and share their experience and their transition out of college and into the business. And there's opportunities for internships that can come out of this, out of talking with alumni. Actually the base, the network of alumni coming out of this program is very strong and will help you transition.
This is the recording arts office. This is where we run all of our sound equipment rentals for all the film shoots, and we also rent out studios as well. And I'm a work-study student, and I got this job starting as a freshman recording arts student at LMU. There's a couple different tasks involved in the office, one being renting out the production sound equipment to student film shoots. That's one of our biggest jobs. And then upkeeping the gear and repairing things, building cables, soldering like what I'm doing here, and just paperwork and all sorts of interesting jobs that can be done around the office. Working in this office is really valuable because any of the skills that you learn in the office are in addition to, they're above and beyond the skills that you might learn in the classroom here at the Recording Arts Department. Skills such as, dealing with the customers and the fellow students that you're checking out the equipment to, and soldering and all these electronics, very technical aspects aren't really covered in a lot of the classes, so it's been a very invaluable experience working in the office. Above and beyond some of the work study jobs that are offered here, Recording Arts also offers TA-ships, which involve working closely with the professors to do certain tasks that they may require, such as approving students for use in the studios, and just helping students become familiarized with Pro Tools and all the equipment that we have in the studios, and as well as using the recorders that we check out to students, and all sorts of great things like that.
Through the course of 4 years in the studies in the classroom, we cover a wide variety of topics to prepare you to become a music editor, a sound effects editor, a re-recording mixer, an engineer, a producer. The whole gamut is explored.
Personally, I didn't have any audio experience before entering the Recording Arts program. I feel it's just a lot of just diving in and learning by, working on different projects, and through that, I think that's the best way just to learn a lot about, what it takes to produce good audio and produce good projects.
The Recording Arts programs really prepared me to do a number of jobs actually after graduation. A lot of them rooted in audio. I feel like I'm ready to go out and maybe do some sound design, do some re-recording mixing eventually. Really, the program is part of a larger university that really kind of creates a whole person and will educate you and give you skills and a tool set that allow you to learn other jobs as you need, as you get beyond. So things that you haven't learned here, it'll be easier to pick them up because of the skill set that you've developed.